All right. Okay, very good.
But let's mute our mics.
All right. Please, I want to confirm, Mr. Harry, can you hear us very well? Can you please confirm your speakers and your microphone, please? Can you see something?
I can see, wow, each one of you perfectly well, and I could hear you very well as well. Can you hear me, or can you see me? See me in face?
Okay, I think you're sharing your screen already, so all right.
Yes, yeah, I'm just testing sharing the screen. Could you see the PowerPoint?
Yeah, I can see the PowerPoint.
Lovely, lovely.
All right. Okay, thank you. I think we can start now.
Yes.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our webinar for today. My name is DK Felix, and I'll be your host for this evening's webinar. The topic of our webinar today is running a viable business startup in China. How to run a viable startup in China. And I hope all of us, the hangover from the COVID-19 scare is not really affecting us much. We hope the days ahead will be better for our country, Nigeria, and for our host country here in China. All right. Please, before I move on, permit me to welcome our guest speaker for today. Please, can we all mute our mic? Can we all mute our speakers? Can we all mute our speakers? All right. Permit me to welcome our host for this evening, the Managing Director of Dingli Group, Mr. Harry Shu, who has over 20 years experience in international business and management consulting. Mr. Harry Shu will be doing justice to the topic of this webinar, which is how to run a viable startup in China. You agree with me that for many years, even up to present, many of our Nigerian students that are just graduating from various universities that would like to go into business, many of them lack the necessary skills and information that they may need to either register, start up a business, and even run the business. And so many of our brethren also that are already doing businesses on small scales do not have their businesses registered. And some of them cannot, because of this situation, take advantage of some of the facilities that registered businesses in China are availed in doing businesses. So, with this in mind, we've organized this webinar to provide basic information and skills that startups or individuals, entrepreneurs that want to go into businesses, especially those that are just graduating and those that are running businesses, but they are not, they've not had their business registered. We hope the webinar will provide them with the basic skills and basic information that they will need to register and start up their businesses. But before I give the floor to our guest speaker, I would like to welcome each and every one of us again. I would like to welcome the acting president of NIDO East China, Barrister Justina Ajala, here present with us. Barrister, you're welcome. We are very happy to have you. Also, we have in the house the co-chairman that of the Business and Investments Group of NIDO East, who also was instrumental in helping us organize the webinar. That is Dr. Polycarp. Dr. Polycarp, we are very happy to have you also in the webinar.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Let me quickly read out some rules of engagement, please, that will help us to have a very smooth webinar this evening. The webinar will run for roughly an hour. I will post the rules in the main group so that we can all see the rules. Please kindly observe these rules. Mute your speakers when you are not speaking. Do not interrupt someone speaking. And kindly wait for the host to give you audience for you to speak, or if you have comments or questions to ask, you can use the raise hand function in the Zoom platform, very close to the participants button. You can use the raise hand option if you want to make a comment. And we have a time allotted for question and answer session towards the end of the webinar. So you can jot down your questions or comments so that you'll be able to ask these questions towards that time. And of course, I wish us a happy listening. So I'll quickly hand over to the speaker, Mr. Harry Shu, to do justice to the topic for the day. Mr. Harry Shu, thank you and welcome.
Okay, thanks, Felix. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank for the invitation to this webinar. Thanks for NIDO, the platform. Thanks, Polly, inviting me. And thanks for Felix for introducing me so lovely. Now, first of all, I would like to, well, I have to, apologize for a couple of things, which, because currently I'm in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, and the weather is horrible outside. It's raining, and so I had to stay in the hotel room and using the hotel Wi-Fi. So sometimes it might, got delay or cut off, but don't worry.
Running a viable.
Okay. So today.
This is a problem with my.
Okay. So today, as you can see, I am sharing my screen. Is there any question or Felix?
Please request a recording permission from there. On veut pas. C'est la personne qui fait qui doit faire.
Mr. Louis, can you mute all other persons except the speaker?
Il n'est pas mis les animateurs. Félix Lenoir.
Okay.
So, all right. Go on.
Right. Okay. Okay. Carry on. So we've got roughly an hour, but we've got such a big PPT, which you can have it after the webinar. So we'll quickly go through where it's necessary of leaving so much time. So today I'm here to share a bit of experience and knowledge of how to run or how to set up and run a company in China or a business. And I think the reason I was invited today is because Polly knows that I've got experience of running business in China as well as running a business in the UK as a foreigner for years. So perhaps that's the reason, because I've got the experience of both running a business in my own home country or running a business as a foreigner overseas. So I could perhaps, seeing the same thing in different angle, and which I would, share as much as I can today. This is me, and now the topics. Today, if possible, I would like to go through all these 5 topics to all of you. The first is about how China rules the business aspect, and the second, tax regulations. These two, obviously, as a foreigner, perhaps you'd like to know before you start a business. However, I wouldn't stay too long in these two, because you could find good consultants which will basically take you hand to hand for every step. So I'll give you the brief introduction for these. Now the number 3, 4, 5, these are more towards to my specialties, where we would like to spend more time in these 3 sectors. Now here we go. First of all, obviously the 2 countries it's become sort of closer and closer for all the tradings and other international cooperations. I don't know what kind of business aspect would you be looking at now. You could perhaps run a business in China, which you would need a Chinese business body. However, you could be doing business in China without the need of having a Chinese business body. For example, if you are simply buying stuff from China and perhaps to Nigeria, or import from the Nigerian point of view to import to Nigeria, then you would not need a company, okay? For example, I've had a company in the UK, which was British registered company. Now, when I import stuff from China myself, I would not need to have a company in China because I could simply use an agent, and the agent would do all the paperwork and to use their own legal body to help us to do that. So that's what I'm saying, that you don't have to have a business body legally to do business in China. It all depends on what kind of business do you have or you want to have, okay? Now, but in many cases, you might need to have a company registered in China. Now, here are the departments you would need, which is called here. Now, that's the department who's regulating all the companies for registration, deregistration and everything. Now, that is you could understand that as a kind of like company house, some department like that, where after you registered with the Gongshang, then you will need to register with the tax office, which is like the Inland Revenue Office. It's called Shui Wu. Now, these two are the departments which mainly will be, relating to your business day to day. Now, down there, I've also said, your handy tool. To register a company in China could be complicated. I mean, very complicated. It's very, very complicated, and it's just really, believe me. First of all, you will need to think of a name, and that name in Chinese to be approved, and then you need to find a location, for your office, and that office has to be approved, which you cannot say, I will work from home and just put down your home address as your registered address. No, that's not allowed in China. And then you will need to go through all the paperwork, and where we have all the paperwork, excuse me.
Okay, I think we just have to exercise a little bit patient for the guest speaker, Mr. Harry, to come back to.
Oh, yes. Felix?
Yes.
Felix?
Yes, we are here.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Okay, here we go.
Sorry.
Sorry about this. I don't know. It's perhaps just the internet.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'll quickly go through here. Can you still see my screen? Can you still see the PPT? No.
No. You need to share your screen again.
Okay, I will do that now.
Okay.
Okay, is that okay?
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Now, have to register China, then I would, sincerely recommend you to find a good agent. Right? There are hundreds, thousands of agents all over the China, all over China, and in every city you see hundreds of them. So there are plenty of them. Then why, if you imagine there's so many of the agents who's helping people of registering company, even for Chinese people, is because the registration procedure is really pain in the ass. So I would strongly recommend you to do so. Okay, and what they would do is with very tiny little, cost, then you could have your company registered and also have your company registered with the Inland Revenue Office as well. Even the bank account, they will help you to open that as well. So that's my suggestion. Taxes every day. Now the taxes here, basically on the left, if you could see my screen here, we're talking about tax on income, tax on transactions, and all kinds of taxes. Well, mainly as a company, you see number one is called the value-added tax, and number two is called income tax, company income tax. Number three is personal income tax as a shareholder or company owner. Number four, you will need to collect tax on your staff's behalf and pay the tax on their behalf as well, which means you have to deduct the personal tax, income tax from their salary. And number five, we've got the national insurance, which is another form of thing that you have to be facing. Now, here are some, introductions of different type of details, which I said, I would leave the PPT to you after the webinar, so you don't have to take note. Then, we don't have to waste a lot of time here because the text is, it's very complicated again. Now, oh, here we go. That's the company registration procedure. Jesus. Hello?
Hello, Mr. Harry.
Yes, hello, I'm back. Sorry, I don't know why it's getting on and off, on and off.
All right.
We understand.
Okay, so here we go, back again. Now, as said, here are all the procedures of registering the company, and above that, there's all the introduction of taxes as well. I said, you would have the PPT afterwards, so we don't waste time on here. But before we move on to the next part, I would really have to say two things about taxes. Number one is, again, most of the agent company who's helping you to register you to do the bookkeeping and tax paying. So just consult with them. You'd better have a this kind of tax payer who's helping you to do so. The cost only like few hundred RMB per month, which for that money you'd never get a decent accountant for the full-time job. But for the starting point, I would really recommend it that way. And number two is the invoices. Now, invoices in between of the two countries, I'm talking about China and Nigeria, could be very, very different. Now, I don't know what exactly the invoice look like in Nigeria. Perhaps you can just basically print on a piece of paper and put that in your book, and basically just calculate your tax based on that. But in China, that you can't do that. For every single piece of the invoice, you have to buy from the tax office before you actually print it, and you cannot handwrite on it. You have to use a kind of to print the invoice itself. And for the value tax of the invoices, you have to print it in the Inland Revenue Office, the tax office. You can't do it in your office or at home. You can't do that. This is just the regulation. So these are the 2 points I have to, emphasize in this session, the tax bit. So after all, I would again suggest you to get in contact with one of your local agents for company registration and also for the bookkeeping and tax pay. Okay, so here are my questions. Now, I've got some basic information from FedEx.
Oh, this is rather unfortunate. Please, let's hang tight and wait for him to be back.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Here I come. I'm back. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Okay. As time flies by, then I'll be quick. Okay. Now I know that you are in different places in China currently, and I don't know what type of business are you looking to do in China. However, here are the my personal experience of places in China, which I'll quickly go these places to you. In China, if you want to do business in China, there are, each area.
I must say, so sorry, everyone. The guest speaker actually is not in China right away. And like he said, where he is right now, the internet connection is not so strong. And that is the reason for, okay, here you go. Here we go.
Yes.
All right.
I'm awful sorry about this. Now, let me just move to another room if the connection is better.
All right.
See. Finger.
Can you try speaking? Hello. Hello, Mr. Harry. Can you try speaking?
Please, let's be patient with him. Huh?
Yes. Okay, I guess he actually is looking for a better location with better internet connection. All right.
Right, is that better this time?
Yeah.
Yes, we can see you.
Yeah.
You're welcome back.
Okay, awful sorry about this. I think it's because, you know, it's lightning and the raining outside is pouring. So that's why maybe. I don't know. It's not like this usually. But anyway, I'm awful sorry. Okay, let's come back and here are the main topic I would like to share of each area is different in China. Now, you know, if you, for example, if you are in Beijing, then normally you're talking about international, what do you call it, the politics, you know, cooperation, and like the very, very large bulk, or like the some of the high tech, some of the you know the web company, and these type of the companies are mainly in Beijing. Okay, but if you're talking about like trading some stuff, not in you know shipload, I would not suggest you to stay in Beijing. However, Shanghai could be a good choice. Shanghai is good in two things. First of all, is Shanghai is good at financial services, and also Shanghai is a good place for all the exporting because surround Shanghai there are two main provinces, which is Jiangsu and Zhejiang. Here we've got the hot provinces. Here is called Zhejiang, and number two is Jiangsu. Now, these two provinces are the very important or main production provinces, where in Zhejiang you could find perhaps everything in there, and in each city and each town they have their own, you know, special production. However, in Zhejiang province, there is a city, it's called Yiwu. I think that many of you have heard of this city. Now, this city is not really for you know production. It's most of the thing in this city is about trading. The bad thing is there you could see traders rather or I could say wholesalers rather than you know manufacturers. However, it is a good place to find some of the you know factory owners, and then to when you want to sort of place a bigger order, then perhaps you know it's a good way of catching these factory owners from you know that city. Now, if you want to do anything like, you know, just the consumer goods relating to fashion, especially in not very, very large quantity, I would suggest you to go to Guangzhou, which is um, the, um, the capital city of Guangdong province. Now, Guangzhou, you have many of the trading places like in Guihuacheng and places like that for all the bags, and for Baima and places like that for all the garments, clothing, and for all the watches. Then you're talking about Zhanxi. So each trading market in Guangzhou, you could find, you know, one or two things which you have a big variety of choice. However, I have to compare Guangzhou to Yiwu. Normally, you're talking about higher price to buy in Guangzhou and cheaper price in Yiwu. But in Guangzhou, normally the traders will not ask you to buy a lot. You know, if you say, I want a dozen of this, a dozen of that, then yes, if you want that type of quantity, go to Guangzhou. But if you go to Yiwu, you're talking about maybe 2/3 of the price of Guangzhou for the same thing, or even half maybe. But in Yiwu, if you say, I want a dozen of this, a dozen of that, they would say, no, 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 I refuse to serve you. Sometimes, not all of them. They might say, this one minimum order 200, that one minimum order 1,000, something like that. So here are the difference between Yiwu and Guangzhou. Although these two cities, they've got similarities in between, but as I said, prices, quantity, here are the two things you need to think of. If you want, as I said, bigger quantity, go to Yiwu. You want smaller quantity, go to Guangzhou. Okay, so that's that. Now, there's another city, which we call Shenzhen or Hangzhou. These two cities, Hangzhou is quite famous for one company, which is Alibaba. Shenzhen is very famous for one company, which is Tencent. You might not know Tencent, but if I say WeChat, you will know. So WeChat, Tencent is the owner of WeChat, basically. Now, these two cities, you're talking about, if you want to do e-commerce, if you want to do, payment transaction and this kind of business, go to perhaps, Hangzhou. And if you want to do anything to do with chatting app or anything to do with payment transaction as well, then go to, Shenzhen. Now, surrounding, Tencent, there are many other like high-tech companies like Dajiang, the helicopters, and, Zhongxin, which is similar to Huawei, and all these companies surrounding there. So as I said, for all the high-tech kind of business, I would really suggest you to go to Shenzhen, even better than Beijing. Now, what's the difference between Beijing and Shenzhen?
Yes.
I would say, although you might say they're both good at high-tech, technology or company, what's the difference? I would say in Shenzhen, it's more like the technology itself, which means, for example, artificial. For example, face, human being face recognition, things like that. Now they are doing all the technology itself there. Now in Beijing, you're more talking about those like web company who's using these technology and make it market, make good marketing, make good money out of it. However, they are not really doing the technology themselves. I'm not talking about, black or white. I'm talking about something like, the lean way, if you're with me. So it all depends on what do you have in mind for your business, proposal. Now, the very last place I would like to introduce is Shandong. That's the province, which is not far from Beijing. Now, this place, you can basically find everything there. Now, they have a big place for, the port for international shipping. They have the port for that. And they have the all the high-tech companies, well, many of them in different area, and they have big area for agriculture. Many of the the food come from that province, so you have basically everything. And if you run a company there, then you're talking about a much cheaper cost. For example, if you want to rent an office. Okay, now you're talking about something around about 7 to 10 renminbi per square meter per day. That's for the renting price in Beijing. And roughly the same in Shenzhen, perhaps, slightly cheaper than Beijing. But in Shandong, you're talking about perhaps half of the price than Beijing, or even cheaper. So that's what I'm saying, that if you don't have to go to Beijing or Guangdong or Hangzhou, then Shandong could be one of your options if you want just a lower running cost, where you can find pretty much everything as well. And, you know, in Shandong, there are a lot of medical factories. You know, they produce all kinds of, you know, medical equipment. And also they, if you want to do any of the sort of agriculture, you know, business, so there, this is the place I would recommend. So basically, here are some of the hot cities and hot provinces in China I would introduce. Now, if I know what exactly that you have in mind for your business, then perhaps I could, you know, suggest some, you know, places more specific. So here are the places. Now, I was asked about the sources of funding. Some of you might want to raise funds in China. I would say, I put down here, this is a sad story. And why it is sad? Because I would say there's very, very little chance you can make it. If it depends on what stage you are at for your business. Now, if you are very, very early stage, now I would say go for the FFFs, the triple Fs, is friends, family, or foes. Now, this is a joke, but it's true, right? Only people who know you, who know you well, who know your track record, they believe in you, they believe whatever the business idea you come with could be a good idea, then they will, you know, either lend or invest you. However, all the rest of the people, like stranger, no matter how rich they are, they would not, because they don't know you. And you haven't got the track record to prove that you can make the thing happen. So it will be very difficult. Now, if you try to raise money in China as a foreigner, that would be even harder. There's one more reason. Let me explain. Now, if I was an investor in China, I would think of, now, the guy in front of me, I don't know him, right? I don't know him. And no matter how strong the relationship between me and the middleman in between of me and that guy in front of me, what happened if this guy, if the business run bust? What happened? I mean, to make a company successful is not a a likely happen thing, because nowadays you see the companies registered in China will only last for I think it's 15 months. For 85% of the company will die in 15 months. So what happened if this company could not last? And where's my money go? So that's what people will think. No matter how good your proposal is, no matter how good your PPT is, no matter how good your presentation is, if you give me the answer, what happened if? So that's what the investor will think. Okay, now that's number one. Number two, as a foreigner, although I know that you as a person staying here in China, you will follow the rules and laws and regulations here in China, but if you decided to move back to Nigeria, I don't think I can ever sue you in Nigeria or in abroad. This is not anything towards Nigerian people, it's to any of the foreign people. So people will think it that way. People will try to think negative. Okay, it's not being being mean, or it's not being sort of
racist,
miserable. Yes, it's not being that. It's just when it comes to money, everything becomes serious. Yes. So this is how the investor will think. And as said, raising fund has never been a game of money. It's all about humanity and mindset. Not mindset is this. Now, if I were you, what I would do is to raise money, raise fund from the triple F at the very beginning and set up your business and to run for a little while and to have the track record. And then when you want to raise more money, then prove it. Show them their your book, which, you know. Number two, I would have to clarify here that when you raise money, you do not tell them, oh, I need money. If I don't have the money today, my company is going to die tomorrow because I've got staff wages to pay, I've got bill to pay. No, nobody will give you a penny for that. Okay, the story you have to talk is, you have to tell the stories like this way, that tomorrow, today we are very small, but without your money, we are making enough to raise ourselves, right? I'm asking for the money to have a boost for the company, for the business, right? With this money, I could make everything happen in 6 months, 9 months, 10 months, right? Without this money, I still will achieve this point, but it will take me 2 or 3 years maybe, right? All I want is your money with the speeding up. That's all I want, okay? And I've got the proof of how I can make this happen, and I've got the proof that how this will happen without doubt, okay? So this is the kind of story, I mean, the way to tell your story when raising the fund. Now, when you come to a decision-making, procedure before you go to see any of the investor, well, think of, there are two options of funding. Now, do you want somebody just to give you the money and without giving any other help to your business? Or number two, you want somebody who's investing maybe slightly less amount of money than the first guy, but he will give you a lot of help in your business. For different amount of money, you have to give same amount of shares. If that is the case, which guy do you want? Now, this is the question. Now, here, talking about investing, the first type of guy, we call them financial investors. For the second type of guy, we call them strategic investors. Okay, now I was invested by some other company before. I have invested some others as well, in and out. Now, I would think this way. If I want that guy to make money for me simply because I invested some money, or I could do something good to this business, which will boost up, I have to think it this way. However, if you really want somebody like the strategic investors, here's a good example. Now, you guys all come from Nigeria. Then there's a Nigerian company called Paystack. I don't know if you know this company. They do money. Yeah, you know that. Okay, good. Now, this company was invested by Tencent. You know the owner of WeChat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, why WeChat invest them? I know there are some other companies in Nigeria doing the same business. Say, for example, Vogue Pay and some other company. Why Paystack? Why WeChat invest them? Because they're smarter? Because they, more beautiful? No. Maybe yes, but if you, switch your position, think it that way. Think as you are the owner of Tencent. What would you do? You are so successful in China with all the, intermediate, with all the payment transaction business. You're so successful. What would you do? Obviously, expand to other countries, right? So when you come to a strange country, would you start everything from scratch yourself? Or you find somebody to invest them locally and get them to do the job? And if you say, for example, now, let's say in the venture capital, the angel round, then we say $2 million, for example, right? $2 million, I want 10% of the share. And after a few months, if this good business, if this company is doing good, then okay, another 20 million. But this time I want 30% of the share. So gradually, this company will become yours. As soon as I raise my fund, I raise my share over 51, then this company is in theory mine, right? With very tiny little money. Well, to them, it's tiny little money, right? So think of the way that which company is big, successful, with hell of a lot of cash and with international vision in China. Think of a company like that, right? And finding what area you could do the same business in Nigeria, as long as there's no such business in Nigeria nowadays, then perhaps you could start like that if you just want that company to support you, as long as that's something you want to do, right? So this is what we called think it reversely, right? From the result back to where you are now. Now here, I'm not going through all these. Now this is what I call here, if you see the PPT, the reverse way is the strategic investment. So raising fund, as said, you have the seed funding and Series A, Series B, Series C until all the IPO. Now for all the IPO, most of the financial investor would love it this way because by the day they invest, they are expecting to get out. They don't want your company forever. They don't want your company for a lifetime. They want to get out as soon as possible. Many of the investors say if they invest Series A, then they hope to get out by Series B, right? People invest in two ways. Number one is buying your existing shares, and another way is getting the money into the company, inject the money into your company without letting you go. So some of the deed or the contract investing, the term sheet, you might see that the previous investor want to get out when the next round money come in. So that's why they all want IPO. However, if you want to say, no, I just want to keep the company private, I never think of IPO, I don't want to IPO, then normally these kind of people will never invest you. But a strategic company, when they invest you, they don't have to have you to go public. They want to buy you off. When you are successful, when the company can run itself without you, when the company can become a department of their company, then that's the time they want you to leave. But being fair, they will give you a bunch of cash so you can retire early. Okay, so that's always like the fairy tale, but it's happening nowadays every day, day to day. However, we're still talking about many of the companies failed, but in the meantime, many of the companies succeed. So as said, for the IPO way, you're talking about, well, you are attracting the financial investors, but for the being paid off the way, then you're attracting the strategic investment. Okay, and again, this is not black and white. This is all about the lean. Okay. Now this is like the raising the fund, and as I said, the best way to raise fund from Chinese companies is to find a gap in between China and Nigeria and fill up the gap. And you don't have to go to them, perhaps they will come to you. And that's always the best way. You talk today, you sign the DD tomorrow, and you get the money the day after. Yeah. Otherwise, you're talking about perhaps a year to completely hold of the procedure. So this is all about the raising the fund. I'd like to share as time really flies by. We only got 10 minutes left. Now, this is the last bit. As said, I really would like to share more in this section, but I don't think we've had a lot of time. Now, the advantage and disadvantages. As I introduced myself, that I've done business before in Britain as a foreigner. Now, I would say I've actually achieved something, not greatly, in Britain. I have achieved something. If you ask me how did I make it, I would say, first of all, I basically reset myself, become a British. Although I don't look like one, and I never will be one, and I don't really want to be one, but I'm saying that I reset myself, become a British, is because I just dump all my Chinese thing and completely think like a British. My mind, I make my mind to as close as possible to a British. So I know for each word I say, what would they think? So I know what if I want, how I want them to react, then I need to do what, right? And so I put down there, which is the result. That's the result you want. Then obviously to serve this result, you have to have the right decision. And the right decision, both your decision and their decisions. Now, the right decision come from mindset. I've made an example before, which in China, you never say others wearing a green hat. Because if you say some man is wearing a green hat, that means that his wife is having an affair. Okay, so this is the culture, which means different culture makes different people have different mindset. Then they come to different decisions, leads to different results. So if you really want to do business in China, not simply buying from China, then you don't have to. But if you want to say, for example, sales stuff to Chinese people, if you want to, really run a business based on your local city, whatever the city is, as long as it's in China, then I would say the best way I would suggest is to change your mindset, become a Chinese. I'm not saying to really change it completely, because you will be a Nigerian forever anyway. So that's what I'm saying. I've changed myself to British, although I am a Chinese still. But by the time I'm doing that, I need to do that. Now, I've started the business in Britain many years ago. At the beginning, I did what I've seen other people were doing, other British people were doing. Now, I could not make anything out of it, because I found that, hang on a minute, they are doing that and people are buying so, then why they are not buying from me? And then I realized that, they've got constant supplier. Why should they buy from me? I need to bring something else. So now there's a trap, which I've brought something totally different from the market. People have never seen things like that. And they would stop by and say, wow, and then walk away without buying. Which, what I'm saying, this is a trap. That means, although you might have spot some difference in between of the two countries or two markets, but it might not be the business opportunity. It could be the opportunity of losing money. Okay, now, however, when we say we change our mindset, become local, now, is the way to understand what exactly people want and what exactly people will pay for. This is very important. People like and people pay for is different thing. It's different, right? People may like it, may love it, but they not want to pay it. So we don't need to have anything people like or love. We need to have what people want to pay for it, or what people want to pay a high price. So that's what we want. Now it could be consumer goods. It could be anything like, copyright stuff. It could be anything. But as long as people want to pay for it, and there's a gap in between of the two countries, in between of the two markets, then that's the opportunity, I would say. So I put down there, which is the ultimate advantage is the ability of matching the difference and the real needs. So it's matching the differences and the real needs. Now this is what, and the disadvantage obviously is to ignore it, or without finding that. Okay, so that's the first point I would like to share for the advantage and disadvantage. Now there's a second point which I also put down here, past and future. Some of you might have stayed in China for a while. You might have some Chinese friends. You might have heard that people said that, oh, Nigeria is like China 20 years ago, 30 years ago, or something like that, right? And they want to, people in China, I mean, many of the Chinese people like to say it that way. Perhaps they say, oh, China is like America, 10, 25, 50 years ago, something like that. Personally, I would not agree with this kind of opinion. For example, if you say Nigeria is like 20 years ago of China, now, can you tell me who's having a smartphone in China 20 years ago? There was no smartphone in China 20 years ago, right? And people are using smartphone everywhere in Nigeria, downloading app, listening to music on the app, and sending text and all these things and that in Nigeria. How can you tell me this is like China 20 years ago? No, it's not, right? So I still think that Nigeria, in some extent, is like China 20 years ago, right? It's like, for example, financial services, maybe. I don't know if there are a lot of insurance company, and if the insurance company are making a hell of a lot of money, everybody's buying insurance, maybe not. But in 20 years ago in China, people don't. And maybe in this area, Nigeria is like China 20 years ago. So when we say the past or future, we have to say in which area, or very specific narrow area, right? In some cases, for example, the legal structure of the country, how can you tell which one is more advanced or which one is undeveloped? How can you tell that, right? It's totally different scheme, structure. So I said, I wouldn't be fooled by people say, 20, 30 years ago, things like that. I wouldn't. I would say, think it very specific, then you will find the difference and perhaps to fulfill that need or gap. So this is what I would suggest. Now, I think the time's nearly 10. Oh, well, 9.
Yeah, Mr. Harry, I just asked the General House if they would like to extend the time beyond 9 p.m. And we've got quite a very good number of viewers typing yes. So we'll extend for next 30 minutes. We'll also like to use approximately 10 last minutes for questions. So you can still expand using perhaps more 15 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, I've rushed to the deadline, which is 9, I've actually gone through all the topics that's prepared. I don't know for the past 5 topics, then which one would you like to hear more?
You can check perhaps the one that you thought is very important, but because of time, we are unable to expand more on this. I think that would be more.
Which one? The tax, or which one? Sorry, Felix. Did you say the tax or the company registration or what?
Okay, no, I said perhaps any of the area or any of the slide that you felt could be very important for especially a business startup, but
okay,
because of time, you were unable to do justice to that slide. Perhaps you can also do a little bit more,
right, okay.
give more insight before we can then take questions.
Sure, okay. Now, I think beyond these 5 topics, now let's go for a couple of other things. Perhaps could be a better amendment. Now, I've basically gone through all these, topics based on imagination of most of the, most of your guys are doing business in importing and exporting. Pretending that's the way. Now, if you are trying to do something different, for example, I know some of you are doing like the music, online sort of editing or something like that, right? So I would say, if you want to do something based on the internet, and especially the business does not have a border, China or Nigeria or Japan or whatever, right? If there's not a border to stop you doing business anywhere, then perhaps you don't have to, perhaps you can just ignore most of the topics today. But what I'm saying that is, most of you, perhaps you want to run a company in China, not only importing and exporting, but just like running a business in China day to day. For example, you want to do business to Chinese people, selling whatever your production, which is produced in Nigeria, or you want to sell in production, which is produced in China from your own company, or you want to sell in like the copyright stuff or software or SaaS, the software as a service. If you want to do things like that, then I would say be careful with the to business. In China, which this word was, I think, is invented by Alibaba. They call it B2B or B2C or C2C, C2B, things like that, right? If you want to do business to another local business, then you got to be careful, because business could be ruled or run by totally different way in China rather than anywhere else in the world, not only Nigeria. For example, personally, I would prefer to do business with somebody I know. I would like to do business with somebody I know well. I would like to do business, who I can based on his word rather than a contract. That's me. And I can assure you that many of the Chinese people would do the same. Okay. Now, if you want to do business to, normal consumer, like, the public, then it's a different story. You're talking about better services, better product, at a better price and a better location, more convenient and things like that. Now, this is what you can do in China. For example, me myself, I found the need that I could very hard to find a kebab shop in Beijing, for example. Just an example, right? And thus, what I would suggest my Turkish friend to have one in Beijing. Perhaps is a good idea. So I said, when you're talking about business to consumer type of the business, then finding the need, you will need to change. You will need to change the mindset. And secondly, finding the need is to find what people will pay for rather than what people will like. That's the trap I would try to avoid. Okay, so I said, to go for the public kind of the business, then you're gonna be careful with your product, with your product line, with your arrangement, with your quality and services. Obviously, for the richer cities, then you're talking about higher income of the public, then your product could be dearer. And otherwise, like we call the third tier, the fourth tier of the cities, then you're talking about, lower income and cheaper prices for anything. Then the last word is, I would really be careful if you want to do anything to do with other Chinese company. I would really be careful because, as I said, it's hard to tell the difference, how business are ruled in China. But all I can say is it's totally different. It's totally different, right? It's totally different when you deal with a company rather than a individual person, right? So that's the advice I would give FedEx.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. That's been very insightful and very, very. I think most of the participants really enjoy the speech, and I'm very, very happy to see many of the participants wishing to have the time extended. We'll move straight into questions, and some members have already sent in some questions, which I will read out. I'd like you to look at these questions and throw more lights on them. The first one is somebody asked, which of these cities, the cities that had been mentioned where you can find certain kinds of products that better manufacture industrial machinery?
Better what? Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Okay, the question asks, which of these cities can he or she find industrial machineries? Or perhaps if you want to invest in industrial machineries, which of these cities would you recommend?
I think the internet is not so good. It's going on and off.
Okay, can I take that, please? Somebody sent in a question.
Or Polly, could you send me to my WeChat?
Okay, sure. I can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, please,
okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Mr. Harry?
I can hear you on and off, like constantly.
Okay. I think I did
I have just sent it.
Okay. Can you see the first question just sent to you?
Okay. Sorry, FedEx. Now I've got the question. Which of these cities is better for manufacturing or industrial machineries, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Well, I think this question is, well, for most of the cities or area, they would have their own manufacturing or industrial machineries. It all depends on what kind of machinery you're talking about, right? What specific kind of thing you're talking about. Now, this is not something I would quite clear with personally. I would say I can think of like Wuhan, the lockdown city, Wuhan or the surrounding area, and Shanghai and the surrounding area, Shandong as well. These are the places that you can find, well, virtually everything in this area. However, talking about looking for things in China, there is the way I would use myself. First of all, I will log on Alibaba. I will log on Alibaba, not Taobao, but Alibaba, right? And type in the keywords, and you would have a list of suppliers, right? And contact, well, obviously you have to select, you know, some of the suppliers and contact all the suppliers which you selected and find out exactly, you know, what they do, if they have the thing you want at the right or roughly right price, and then go to visit them locally, you know, see them offline, face to face, see the factory, see the thing itself, see everything yourself before you make a purchase. That's what I would do. That's what I would do. I mean, basically, I would, you know, search for information online, but make my decision after offline visit. That's what I would do. Yeah.
Okay. That's okay. I just sent you the second question. I don't know if you can check the private chat on Zoom. Your private chat on Zoom. I just sent you a second question. The person asked, is there limitations on the kinds of businesses that foreigners can do in China? For instance, can a foreigner engage in delivery business?
Okay. Right. If you want to do, for example, if you want to start a delivery business in China, it depends on if you want to do the international delivery or just the inland delivery. If you want to do the international delivery, I believe that you can do so. I believe, okay, which I'm not 100% sure, because as a international, you know, Korea, then you'd be better to have your main company registered in Nigeria and to have your branches opened in China. Perhaps that's a better way. However, if you want to do the inland business, which is like the inland delivery, then I believe there's a certain hurdle. There are some certain hurdles, I believe. It all depends on the area. Now, if we go back to the company registration here, if we go back to this bit, could you see my page?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, lovely.
Yes.
Okay, now you're submitting your Chinese name, register, blah, 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 choose. Here we go. Oops. In these two steps,
okay,
you will find the answer if you are allowed to do so or not. In these two steps. Now, you don't have to go all the way to that point. You can go straight to their offices and find out the answer even before you start registration.
Okay.
Yeah. And I believe that you can get an official answer from them.
Okay.
And sometimes it's not it could not, you know, it might not be a no. It could be something like, yes, but, you know, yes, you can do it, but you have to go through this, you have to apply for that to get that approved and things like that, you know. So sometimes it's not a no, it could be a yes, but. And the policy is changing very rapidly. I mean, you know, we all know the trade war in between of China and the US, and a lot of the policies are changing according to the the trade war. So you might have the answer for no today, and it could be a yes tomorrow.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Harry, for the response. The next question, I'm not very sure. I'll still read it out to you. I've already sent you a private chat.
Yes, I've got quite a few questions here. Let me go through all these, shall we?
Okay.
Okay. Now, after this delivery question here we go. Which cities give free accommodation, and what's the difference between personal startup and startups from companies in Shanghai? The companies that help you register, or you personally register yourself? I think there are 3 or 4 questions all in one. Now, the company who help you to register is the kind of organization I called agent at the very beginning. You want to find a good agent to help everything, all these headache stuff. So I would not suggest you to register the company yourself. I would really suggest you to just find a good agent, and that's it. Give him the money, that's all. And he will get everything set for you. But which cities give free accommodation? If I may understand this, is that some of the cities, they have kind of industrial park or startup park, things like that. They will give you free offices or maybe free office desks within the open sort of office area and something like that. That is the kind of local policy to encourage people to start up a business. However, I have to apologize that I don't know if this policy applies to foreigner. I don't know, right? If you ask me which city towards Chinese who give this kind of policy, I would say most of the first or second tier of the cities, they will offer this kind of thing, most. But different city, they have different policy, they have different hurdle. For example, some, say Beijing, for example, you have to be under, I think it's 40 or 45 years of the age. You have to have the title of doctor. You have to have, well, a lot of things like this. Then they will give all these to you. However, if you say in Hangzhou, then no, you don't have to. As long as you are graduate from the undergraduate, from the university, and you have the business plan, which is, it doesn't matter if it works or not, as long as it makes sense, by telling the story. Then yes, they will give you something like that. So different city has different policy. Now, most of what I call the first and second tier of the cities, they will have this kind of policy. Now you may ask, what is second tier? What's first tier? Now, there are only 4 cities called first tier in China. Is Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen. Now, all the other capital city, most of the capital city of different provinces, they are second tier. You could understand it that way simply. Right, so this is this, and what's the difference between personal startup and startup from companies in Shanghai? I didn't quite understand this question. Well, let's move down to the next one. If the guy who asked this, please could you type it again? So we'll move to the next one. If I want to do app services business targeting Nigerian market, do I need to have office in China to attract Chinese investors? No. This answer is no, clearly no. If you have set up a app services business toward the Nigerian market, then this is the question. You don't, well, first of all, you don't have to have the office in China. It's simply just for investment. No, you don't have to. However, I might have an additional question for you. Why would you think the Chinese company will invest you in this area? You may say, I've said the reverse way is strategic investment. Now, that may be a yes, but you have to be somewhere that this company is doing himself in China and very successful, and they have a bunch of cash, and they want to expand to different countries other than China, and especially in Nigeria. So if all these questions, the answer is yes, then yes, you have the chance. If no, if any one of them is no, then maybe not. So have to be careful. But as I said, you don't have to have the office in China at all, okay? But for example, if you do the app service, say, if you want to do gaming, for example, like just the gaming, then yes, I would say maybe they would do it. But in gaming business, there are normally two kinds of businesses. Number one is they call it the workshop, who's basically producing this game, right? And there's another kind of business, which is like the distributor. Now, the distributor has to sign a contract, become an agent of the workshop for maybe the sole agent, or not the sole agent, just one of the agents in the area, for example, Nigeria. If you could ever sign even one so successful game for the area of Nigeria, then yes, then people will buy you, people will invest you, no doubt for that. Now, if you are just a distributor with not such strong product in hand, then I would say as long as you have very good distribution network in Nigeria, then people will invest you for that network rather than the copyright you have in hand or the contract you have, right? So no matter what, as long as you have something which is strong and the Chinese company won't, then yes, there is a chance. But you don't have to, have the office in China, because normally if they want to invest you, they will set up a company in Hong Kong and to put their money from we call the mainland to Hong Kong company, and to invest you through that Hong Kong company or any other offshore company. That's the way they do it normally. But no matter what way, you don't have to have an office in China. Okay, so we go for the next one, shall we? Yep. Is there any restrictions on sending money out of China? Can you kindly? If you, okay, now this is the very last bit of the, we call it the business circle. If you have set up a company in China and you are running this company successfully with profit generating, now you want to do it that way. Yes, let's see our page here. Here we go, here. Open your company basic bank account and foreign capital account. This is, behind that, there's only saying that inject your capital. But in the meantime, because you have the foreign capital account, then you can basically transfer your money to Nigeria anytime as you wish. As long as you can prove, number one, this money was generated from the company I registered in China. And number two, I've paid all the taxes I have. So then yes, then there should be no restriction. Okay, But personally, I've never done it that way myself, because I don't really send money, overseas. However, as I said, if you do it that way, I think as long as you register with the what do you call the not the bank, the central bank, yes. As long as you register with the central bank, then you're free to transfer your profit after tax. Okay, so we move on.
Okay, I think maybe maybe you just take the last question, and then because we are really now running out of time,
okay.
Perhaps you can take the last question and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay, I'm not gonna select anything. I will just go for the next. For funding a business idea, can a foreigner or student trade in Chinese stocks or venture into the Chinese stock market to serve as a potential funding platform for his business idea? I think there are some kind of restriction for Chinese stock market, which basically blocking foreign people and foreign capitals. Basically foreign capital, not really foreign people. I think the Chinese stock market, is free to open and is free to trade as long as you are using the Chinese currency, the renminbi. Okay, but I'm not sure. You see, you're asking a lot of questions which I don't know because I've never met things like this in China, being a Chinese, So anything I'm sure I will give you a clear answer, yes or no, which I'm not sure. I will give you my guess, but I will let you know I'm not sure. Okay, foreign students in the stock market now. Some of the international, investment organizations, they want to get into the Chinese market. I mean, especially the Chinese stock market. They will never, invest in first of all different currency. They will always invest in renminbi, not US dollar or anything else. So number two, they sometimes do have a WOFE company in China. What's a WOFE company is a company controlled by contract. If you understand me like this, which means, for example, I have a company in China and the registered owner is ABC, right? Who's a Chinese, for example. Okay, now this company has signed a contract with my company who's registered in Hong Kong, then saying that this company, this inland company is controlled or owned and controlled by this Mr. ABC. However, this company is really controlled by this Hong Kong company who's controlled by you. Now, so by doing that way, this Chinese registered company become not really a Chinese company, is a company who's controlled by a foreign company. And this company could do any inland business here in China, but all the decisions were made by the foreign company. And this foreign company could ask this inland company to invest in this, to invest in that, and to collect money to this company and send it over abroad. So this is how they do it. Okay, so I said, although I could not give you a clear answer if you can do the Chinese stock market business or not, I cannot give you the answer, but I can give you the way, which is how other foreign, capital do. So yeah, that's my answer.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I think that's the much we can take from questions. First, I would like to appreciate you, Mr. Harry, for
You're welcome.
granting us the gracious audience to tap in from your wealth of experience. I am very sure that most of our members really enjoyed the evening. We are very grateful, even extending the time beyond 9 we've scheduled before, in order to do more justice to most of the ideas and most of the topics. So we really appreciate your time. We really appreciate the insights.
You're welcome.
Mr. Harry. Thank
My pleasure.
you very much.
You're welcome.
All right.
Bye. So enjoy the evening. Thanks. See you guys.
All right.
All the
Okay.
best. All the best.
All right. We would like to give room for the acting president of NIDO China to also talk to our members and give a closing vote of thanks. Barrister Justina, please, you have the house.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Felix, our host. And thank you, Mr. Ari, for the presentation.
You're welcome.
It has been very enlightening and informative. Thank you for that. And thank you for being part of us this evening. And also, I would like to appreciate everyone for staying with us till this time, because we've really gone beyond the time. Thank you for being with us. And I know so many of us, we are facing a lot of difficulty this time around with what is happening around. Yeah. And I know so many of us are emotional. Even personally, I'm not happy with what is going on. But I just want to encourage us to just keep safe and adhere to all rules and regulation of our host country. Since we are still here in China, please, I would like to urge us to just keep on holding on. And for our friends, our brothers and sisters that are out there, I pray that this period, the storm will be over soon, so that we can all go back to our normal lives. And we appreciate the Chinese government also, and our African ambassadors, because we heard that they are also meeting on this issue. So we pray that everything will be resolved soon, and we'll all be happy at the end of the day. So thank you, everyone. Stay safe and be good. We are all representative of our countries, because we have non-Nigerians here in our midst this evening. We have other foreigners. We appreciate you for joining us. So I hope we all keep safe. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All the best. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Barrister Justina, the acting president of NIDO East China. Lastly, I would like to also thank our viewers, those that have logged in to be part of this webinar. The PPTs, like Mr. Harry promised, will send across using the NIDO official WeChat account. Yes, we'll just share in the groups, and we'll also share through our various social media handles like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I know some of us may not be aware that NIDO have all these social media handles, but we do have them, and we'll share the PPT through all these handles. Some persons are also sending in some questions. I would like to say, please, questions you can direct to just tag either Justina, or you tag Felix, or you can tag Dr. P in the main group and still ask further questions. We'll collate these questions and still send them to our guest speaker. Perhaps he can answer them in his private time, and we'll try to reach back to you, because we know that this is a very important topic, and many of us would like to really go into the practical aspect of some of the things that we are discussed this evening. So if you have more questions or clarification areas you need clarifications, or some other things you need to learn from the speaker, please feel free to reach any of us and send your questions. Lastly, we wish to create a WeChat group that will be specifically meant for those that will want to progress towards perhaps registering a business here in China. We want to see how we can assist, just to do like coordinate, help link you up with people that will assist speedily to get the businesses registered for you. And somebody asked, I think I saw a question, somebody was asking, how can we get a company like Alibaba to invest in our business idea? just presently, Alibaba is running a competition, a program, a project. It's called the Get Challenge Project. This project is specifically meant for persons that are between the ages of 18 and 30, and for internationals that are here resident in China, or those that have passed through, that have stayed in China for like 6 months. So we'll try to also make this event public to you. So if you are willing to participate in this event, it's actually organized by Alibaba. So they will choose the best of the ideas and I invite them for further training. Those that are successful will get cash awards and investment opportunities. So we'll share these things in our groups, and I hope we'll all keep in touch. So thank you everyone once again who've actually stayed beyond 9. We really appreciate your time. We really appreciate everything. So thank you, and please keep safe. Wash your hands. Don't put your hands
in your mouth.
Close to your mouth or your nose, and stay safe. All right. Thank you, and have a lovely night rest.
All right. Thank you everybody for coming.
Thanks for coming.
Thank
Have
you.
a blessed night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.